already did it.
1 second.
All right, it was Q1, week 3, and even though today's Tuesday, 'cause it's after Labor Day, we're still doing Mondays. What time is 5 3/4 hours after 11:32 p.m.? I needed to come up with 5 3/4 hours. I need to change it to hours and minutes. 3/4 of an hour is how many minutes? Very good, 45 minutes. Okay. Now this is how I do this. I take my starting time, which is 11:32 p.m. and I'm adding, because it says after, that would be 5 hours and 45 minutes later. So I'm gonna add my time. So 2 plus 5 is 7, 3 plus 4 is 7, bring down the colons, and 11 plus 5 is 16. Now that looks like an awfully odd time because we don't have that time. So what you do is you take away the 60 minutes to change it into 1 hour. So I'm really not changing anything. I'm just taking the minutes, making them an hour. So now I have 17.
Oh,
Now what I'm going, yes, you add the hour, because you took the minutes and changed it to an hour. Now, I don't know, we don't do military time, we don't do 17. So I need to change the hour. To change the hour, you subtract 12, because we only go by, there's 12 in an hour, so that would become 5:17. And it was after PM, so now we're at the AM. So that's how you would work with the time. Number 2, they keep coming up. How long will it take you to drive 120 miles at a speed of 15 miles per hour? You make your equivalent ratios. 15 miles in 1 hour equals, I need to go 120 miles in so much time. I don't know how much time that's going to take. So I'm going to do my cross multiplication. So I have 15x equals 120. Divide by 15. Divide by 15. X equals, I don't know exactly what 120 divided by 15 is, so I would come over here and I would do a little multiplication, bless you. I know 15 times 2 is 30, so times 4 would be 60, times 6 would be 90, so let's try 8. 8 times 5 is 40, and that would be 120. So 8 is my correct answer. You did what?
I did 15 divided by 8. I don't know why.
To get your answer?
Yeah, and then that's when
Well-
I got 120. I don't know how.
Okay, because to here from 15 to 120, you times it by 8. So here to here, I can just say times by 8, my answer would still be 8.
That's how I did it.
That's fine. Yep. You're essentially doing the same thing. 3 was a very, very long problem. Which city had the biggest change in inches from January to July? If I'm looking for a change, I subtract my 2 numbers. If I did, now, really, I didn't have to do all the numbers. I look at the numbers with like maybe the biggest gap, because here I have a 3 and 53 minus 3 and 49, and 9, which if I subtract, I get 44 hundredths. So really, they still have the same number of whole numbers. But here I go from a 5 down to a 0. Isn't that gonna be a big change?
Yes.
Here I go from a 4 down to a 0. Isn't that gonna be a big change?
Yes.
1 to a 3 is not as big. 1 to a 2 is not as big, and 2 to a 5, maybe,
A little bit.
because that's a 3. So I would at least do 1, to 3 subtraction problems.
I did all.
And if you did them all, that's fine. Once you subtract, I got 4 and 6200ths, 4 and 3200ths, and then the last one was 3 and 6900ths. So the biggest change would be the one with the biggest number, which would be 4 and 6200ths. So Seattle, Washington had the biggest difference.
I got it one.
A store sold $115.50 worth of coffee mugs. How many mugs did they sell? Well, they're each $3.50. Bless you. So I'm gonna set it up. $115.50 divided by $3.50. Move the decimal twice here to get it out. Move it twice to get it out.
And then rewrite your
So I'm gonna rewrite my problem.
Can you take 1 0?
Hold on. I'll get to that in just a second.
I could have done that. Really? Take the 0.
Now we do the take a
0.
0. If they both have zeros at the end,
I
then
can
rewrite it again. If you did that in one step, that's fine.
I didn't do
If you did that in one step, that's fine. Otherwise, make sure that you're doing getting rid of it. So 35 can't go into 1. It can go into 11, but it can go into 115.
3 times.
About 3 times, so let's just do it. 35 times 3 is 105. So we have 10 left. Bring down the 5. So obviously it goes in there 3 more times, because that's an even number, 105.
Okay, so
So my final answer is 33.
I just didn't get rid of the zeros and did 350 back to 3.
Same.
You got 33 though?
You'll still get the same answer. You still got 33.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can keep the zeros in.
But
But to me, I like working with smaller digits.
it's easier.
Okay, that was actually really number 4.
Yeah.
So we're going on to number 5. Which of the following expression is equivalent to a negative 1/4 minus, so a negative 1/4 minus 5/3? Last week I said, and some of you guys got confused, I said, you can think of the subtraction sign as a negative sign. This is what you need to write down. This is subtracting integers. You're going to write down keep, change. Keep, change. You better write this down. Because you're going to, when you're subtracting integers, you're going to keep the sign of the first number. So I'm going to keep it, a negative 1/4. You're going to change the sign, or change your what you're doing. So instead of subtracting, I'm really going to be adding. And then I'm going to change the sign of the other number. This number is considered positive. So if I change a positive, it now becomes a negative 5/3. So the first problem is equivalent. So this is equivalent to this. And then they have your parentheses. But you need to make sure you're writing down the keep, change. 6. Yes, it was a story problem, but yes, you guys know how to do division of fractions. How many 3/8 foot pieces of wood can you cut from a board that is 1 7/8? I'm cutting it from, and if I'm making pieces, I need to divide. So what am I splitting, the 1 7/8 or the 3/8?
1 7/8.
1 7/8. So you start with that number. And start with 1 7/8 divided by 3/8. Change this to an improper fraction, which would become 15/8. We change division to multiplication, and we flip or find the reciprocal, that's 8/3. So then I'm gonna reduce going sideways by 8, this becomes a 1, this becomes a 1. Can I reduce again?
Yeah,
15 and 3, dividing them by 3, the 15 becomes a 5, 3 becomes a 1.
Now it's easy.
So then 5 times 1 is 5, 1 times 1 is 1, so my final answer is just 5.
Seven.
7 says to convert 2/3 to a decimal by long division. 2/3. We changing it to a decimal, so you need to show 2 divided by 3. 3 doesn't go into 2. So I add the decimal, bring the decimal up and add the 0. 3 goes into 20, 6 times, because 6 times 3 is
18.
18. 2 left, add a 0, bring the 0 down. 3 goes into 20, 6 times. Somebody already said, this is gonna just keep repeating.
So you put
But at least, if it starts to repeat right away, at least show me 3 times, cause it said division, long division, and then I'll just rewrite it off to the side. Don't forget to put the bar above the 6. And number 8 was just like the lesson we were working on last week. 29/8, a negative 29/8 compared to a negative 3 62/100. When I'm comparing things, they have to be in the same form. It's a lot easier for me to change this fraction to a decimal than changing the decimal to the fraction. So I'm going to take 29 divided by 8. 8 goes into 29. I'm sorry? Thank you. And that is 24. 5 left, bring up your decimal. Bring down the 0. 8 goes into 50.
4. No.
No.
Oh my god.
Seven.
Look, 6 times, which is 48. 2 left, add a 0, bring the 0 down. 8 goes into 20.
2.
2 times, which is 16. 4 left, add a 0, bring the 0 down. Exactly 5. Now remember, this was a negative 29, so your answer is a negative. So I've got a negative 3.625 compared to a negative 3.62. Now, if I'm looking at these to compare, the numbers so far are the same in the same place value. So, but now I have a 5, so what should I add here?
A 0.
A 0. Now, these are negative numbers. So most of you want to say that 5 is greater than 0. However, not with the negative.
The negative.
5 is, a negative 5 is less than a negative 0. Because if I've got my number line, here is 0, and I go to the right, those keep getting bigger. If I go to the left, I go negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. If I go this direction, the number gets bigger,
But it gets.
to be a smaller number. The digit itself gets bigger, but the number is actually smaller. Go ahead. Stop it. Take a